Thank you very much. Good morning. 2 weeks ago, I was in China, and I spent a day in Shenzhen. This is on the southern coast of China. And we were visiting the world's largest manufacturer of electric vehicles. They're called BYD. I mean, what is happening in that place is astounding. And I think it will change the world. We saw things I never imagined, honestly, that I would ever see. Some of them are not yet in the marketplace. So. But then as we were talking to people there, maybe this may sound anodyne. Someone said to me that China is producing now annually anywhere between 1 million and 1.4 million engineers per year. Right. Engineers, all kinds of engineers. To give you an idea, the United States, I hope my numbers are right, it is less than 100,000 engineers per year, the United States. So is it surprising that 20 years ago, Chinese share of the global manufacturing output was, I think, about 9%. Now it is 33%. That is the same as the next three countries put together, the US, Japan, and Germany. All right? And when you look at it, it has taken a combination of things, the kind which my colleagues are mentioning. And if I was to be candid, I don't think to find the AI, what is in short supply is capital. What is in short supply is intermediation of that capital. Okay. And I say this because I believe that international organizations will have to shift the way they have worked since 60 years ago. The lack of the institution I was leading, I don't know if there's somebody from ADB here or World Bank. Yes. Because for the last 60 years, our institutions have functioned as transferring a bit of surplus capital to fight poverty, to build roads, water points here and there. That model, I have nothing against it, but it's coming to an end. These institutions will have now to shift to a model of how they intermediate where you have got surplus capital, but because of demographics, you have aging, low returns on investment, to places like Africa and the ASEAN countries where you have demographics coming up and the return on investment are very high. Let me explain. So if you take, say, Europe, most of Asia now, essentially savings are increasing at a very high rate. Savings are increasing because the demographics are down. In Japan, even if you put interest rate at -2, does not increase consumption. They tried that. Now the lack of Singapore, Taiwan, even China, they are approaching this issue of demographics. So savings are increasing, and the return on investment is limited, except one area, technology. Now, in our case, what you call the Global South is the opposite problem. Yeah. We have demographics coming up, and will be there for many more years. Savings are negative, for reasons you understand, but the return on investment is very high. So, but because of perception of risk, there's no mechanism to intermediate the surplus capital from that part of the world, where the return on investment is very low, except in technology, to that part of the world where the opposite could happen. So I think I agree with everything that has been said, private capital, governments. But I think for me the defining element will be if we find international organizations, if they change their business model now to do what I'm saying to you, right. i.e., how do you de-risk the capital from the north, the global north, where the return on investments are very low, where savings are increasing every year, to places like Africa where the returns will be very high, and one of the areas where it will be very high to be this new technology, including AI. Now, are these institutions prepared to do that? I don't know. Maybe Vera was in the World Bank for a long time, same time as me. I'm not sure if they're prepared to do that. But if they are not, they will be missing a huge opportunity, and they'll become very irrelevant. So I do think that the shareholders of these institutions have to sit back and ask, what does this new industrial revolution mean for their business model? Because then, together, between themselves, the sovereign wealth funds, all these institutional investors in the north, with opportunities in the south, I think there is a win-win for everyone. My last point. You see, the first industrial revolution, which was going to mass production, was funded by surpluses from the agricultural revolution.
Yeah.
You know, agriculture was changing, so it released labor, surpluses. This what funded this revolution. This one will have to be funded by surpluses of savings from the global north to the global south. It's a point I was making.
Yes.
Unfortunately, is there a will to have this done? My guess is it will happen. And the example I have is what has happened in the ASEAN region, and this to Vera's point. You see, the ASEAN region, which is now one of the most highly fast developing part of the world. I keep giving the example of Vietnam, which in 1994 had a GDP of $15 billion, 1.5.
Yeah.
Now it has a GDP of $500 billion in one generation.
Yeah. True.
Do you know what has happened? They invested massively in education. I keep referring to an article I saw in The Economist. You can look it up. It's in June in 2023. It is entitled, "Why are Vietnamese schools so good?" They were saying that learning outcomes in Vietnam are better than Canada or the UK. So this investment in education, all right, plus a few other things which I mentioned, then attracted huge amounts of investment from places like Taiwan, South Korea, China, and Japan. So the chance is if you have a Samsung phone in your hand, the chance 60% was made in Vietnam because Samsung relocated all its production to that area. Now, that part was investment in education, and then the free trade area, which 30 years ago the region signed with China. So investment had been flowing forth and back.